had arrived from Egypt. He spent the last 6 years as a political prisoner behind bars, but reports now suggest that Sir Keir Starmer was unaware of the abhorrent views expressed by the alleged extremist before he publicly welcomed him to Britain, when he said he was delighted that he was coming to Britain. Now, this comes as Labour has for the first time imposed visa restrictions on a country refusing to take back criminals and illegal migrants. So diplomats and ministers from the Democratic Republic of Congo will no longer receive preferential visa treatment, and its citizens will be barred from fast-track entry to Britain. We're joined now for more on this by the former Conservative advisor, James Price. James, thank you very much for coming into studio today. Let's go through a few of the other things that El-Fattah has said, because I think we were quite generous to him in that intro. He also said, "I hate white people. I'm proud of being racist against whites. I can't read that one out, that's very rude. I am a violent person who advocated the killing of all Zionists." He also said there was no genocide against Jews by the Nazis. We can go on and on and on. That's a short collection of the many remarkably nasty and hateful tweets he's put out. Labour are in serious trouble that they've welcomed this man into Britain.
Well, he was very clever and sly by, publicly posting all of this stuff where anybody could have found it, and nobody bothered doing it until they announced this guy was released. It is astonishing. I mean, the chap has tweeted almost 300,000 times, which is quite impressive given he spent the last 6 years in a prison cell. And as you say, he's come out with all kinds of horrendous things, and nobody, no civil servant, no politician, and I have to say of any party, has bothered to do the work on this guy, despite the fact that Rishi Sunak was apparently brought this issue up with the president of Egypt during one of the recent COP conferences, and Keir Starmer has been publicly calling for him to be released for a long time now. Yvette Cooper, now the Home Secretary, former Foreign Secretary, calling for him. And people can just go and look up this guy, and some of the stuff he said is abhorrent. What is he doing coming into this country? Because let's be clear, he was given citizenship only a couple of years ago as an attempt to try to prize him out of this Egyptian prison. The reason he was supposedly eligible was that his grandmother gave birth to his mother whilst the grandmother was studying here in Britain. But I'm not sure he's ever even set foot in this country. So when Starmer tweets, "I'm glad to welcome him back to Britain," what are you talking about?
Welcome him to the first time.
For the first time.
Indeed. Well, what really confuses me, well, I say confuses me, it's becoming increasingly obvious what's going on here, but what disturbs me about this is we have this discussion all the time about two-tiered justice, and GB News has broken countless stories about the police cracking down very efficiently on what they consider to be sort of right-wing and evil views. We've broken stories about Jewish schoolboys being investigated by the counter-extremism unit for saying that Hamas should be destroyed. We've recorded instances of Christian preachers being arrested in South Yorkshire for preaching the Bible, and that's being deemed to be a non-crime hate incident. There are so many other examples we can go to, the police cracking down on speech. But here, this very high-profile case, the state hasn't bothered to look at the many, many examples that is going on here. This is a hook, line and sinker example of two-tier policing.
I think so. I don't think there's any other way you can go around it. To add to your list of incidents that people have got in trouble for, only a few days ago it came out that a teacher was cautioned under some kind of anti-hate laws because he was teaching an American politics class and started showing videos of President Donald Trump. So this guy gets in trouble. There's a lady who's got in trouble for maybe silently praying in her head. Graham Linehan, the genius, hilarious writer of Father Ted and much else, was met at Heathrow Airport by 6 armed guards and interrogated so aggressively that he, I think, was sent to hospital about this. And yet this bloke with the most heinous views is welcomed here with open arms. One of the things that he said that really got me was that he decided he needs to go and kill lots of Americans. And because I'm such a wife guy, I talk about my American wife on this show probably far too often. And what is she supposed to think about it? Friend of the show, exactly right. What is she supposed to think about this? I've written to Dawn Butler, who's my local MP just up the road here. Do you support Keir Starmer welcoming this man who says he wants to kill Americans? Is my wife one of those Americans Muslims he wants to kill. This is terrifying. And this is just one small example of the numbers of people that we let into this country. We don't try and integrate them once they're here. We let hate preachers, and over again it seems to be Islamists, people who want to pursue political Islam, and we don't go after them at all. We don't look into funding in mosques. We don't look after any of the people who are victims of this. I think there's still a teacher who's in hiding up in Batley for talking about some of these issues because he was given so many death threats. And yet, as you say, there are so many other examples. If that's not two-tier policing, I don't know what is.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Well, you're a former Conservative advisor, James, and I think you were right to note in your first answer that the Conservatives have got much blame to focus on here as well, because a lot of these proceedings, these diplomatic encounters, took place in 2022 under the last Conservative government.
Yeah, it's pretty indefensible, isn't it? I think it's very good that people like Jack Rankin, who's a new Conservative MP, has come out and said, actually, the bit that we all think about this chap that needs to be said, which is that he is not British. He may have been given a British passport. He's not British in any real sense of the word. He himself has he says he's not British. So it's good that you've got Conservative MPs saying that. I think it was Robert Jenrick who was the first person to come out and say this. But I'm afraid there have got to be some questions to answer. Why on earth did Rishi Sunak, when he was Prime Minister, raise this as an issue? You have the whole apparatus of the British state. Another failing from Rishi.
James, thank you very much. Joined in the studio now by Benedict Spence, Andy Williams. Very good to see you both.
Good afternoon.
We've had a tweet from Alicia Kearns, who's a Conservative shadow minister. She was campaigning for El-Fattah's release when she was in government as a Conservative. She said just now, I feel deeply let down and frankly betrayed, having lent my support to his cause, which I now regret. And that's the strongest language I've heard from anyone who was part of this campaign, to outwardly say they regret it now. And Benedict, she also says that she was not aware of his grotesque tweets. How has the whole system missed this?
Oh, who does she feel let down by? Her own search engine? I mean, what on earth, whose responsibility is this? You know, she has fingers, she has access to the internet. You'd assume that she'd know a little bit about the guy who she was campaigning to have released from Egypt, and presumably, therefore, what he was in prison for. And if there's something, evidence as to what it is that he's in prison for, you might want to actually delve into this. I don't really have a lot of sympathy for any MP. I understand it to a degree from certain Labour MPs who will just get on any old bandwagon, for anybody who is a dissident against any regime anywhere across the world, and they'll go, well, clearly this must be the good guy because he's fighting the system. OK, I get it. They're very, they have a certain worldview, fine. Conservatives, you'd hope, would have a little bit more mental dexterity about what it is that people might be in prison for, might be able to pick up a phone to somebody in that country and go, now look here, this chap, what's he in prison for? What's been going on here? Maybe, talk to one of their aides, one of the people who works for them and say, if you've got 5 minutes, which I'm sure you do, could you just check that this guy isn't a rabid racist? Just to be clear, I'm sorry, I have very little sympathy now for the few remaining Conservative MPs who are reverse ferreting and saying, whoops, we didn't see this coming.
Andy, it's got to be a bleak moment for Sir Keir Starmer to realise that
Another one.
well, yes, indeed. After tweeting that he was so delighted that they've been able to secure this release, and so many other ministers, David Lammy, Yvette Cooper, lining up to echo that language, it transpires that El-Fattah has said, if we can't kill the officers anyway, fine, we'll find a terrorist cell to kill their children and torture their mothers. He wrote that in May 2012. A lot of these posts have now been deleted, but right after Labour ministers are welcoming him, this language is resurfacing. It is a complete disaster.
Yeah, I mean, I saw someone on Twitter saying all the government needs to do is hold their Baileys, not spill it all over the carpet before New Year's Eve, and just stumble over the line and not screw anything up over the Christmas period. And I mean, what a disaster. I mean, it's emblematic, actually, of this government, unfortunately. What I find really strange about, I mean, one thing we should say is, you know, he was a political prisoner. He clearly was jailed for reasons that weren't legit.
But is that our problem?
Well,
I'm not an Egyptian. I mean, it's a shame
No,
that,
I totally agree.
some North African countries don't have good rules on freedom of speech. Frankly, clearly, we don't have great rules on freedom of speech either. The number of people who are getting, you know, locked up for their concerns back home. But we don't need to add to our problems by bringing this person to the...
I mean, Benedict used the word bandwagon, and that is exactly what it is, you know. And you see so many of these campaigns where you think, have people actually looked into it? The frustrating thing for me is celebrities, fine, whatever, it's relevant. But politicians, it's literally your full-time job to... Look, you know, they have the time because it's their actual job. They are paid to look into these things. And as you say, you know, clearly nobody... I mean, it's a massive collective failure. Multiple foreign secretaries, multiple prime ministers. Why? And what I don't understand is the fact that Starmer described it as one of the government's top priorities.
Yes.
That is what is going to
what an
really...
goal.
Not my taxes, not the cost of living.
That's it. You know, cost of living crisis, there's all sorts of things that we should rightly be worried about. And it's just, it makes it look, once again, as if he's out of touch.
James Price, they're not using the term mission-led government anymore, but I didn't have it down as one of the missions that the Labour government were pushing was the release of this chap. But let's talk about something else in this case. I think it could spark a conversation now about how we afford citizenship to people, because this guy, he's never been to Britain, as far as we can tell, but his grandmother gave birth in Britain several decades ago, obviously, and now he was offered citizenship in 2022 while he was in prison to then develop all this tremendous consular assistance. We wouldn't have had to do all that had we not, you know, given him that passport a few years ago. Do you think it could lead to a few questions being asked about that process, and do you think we should change it?
Yeah, absolutely. It will lead to these kind of conversations, and I think that it should. I think it's such an unbelievably egregious example that most people now will not be able to defend this idea that a bit of paper magically makes you as British as everybody watching this programme right now. It clearly doesn't. The guy has said he's not British, he doesn't care. We've seen lots of other examples of people mocking their own citizenship ceremonies, saying, oh, I thought it was going to be really lame and rubbish, but actually the person, I think this was a case then in Brighton, the person doing the ceremony greeted me with an Arabic greeting, and therefore that's great, I still think it's stupid, ha ha ha. And there are plenty more examples like this, of people stick around just long enough either to get the indefinite leave to remain or the passport because of the various privileges that it affords them. We had the case with Shamima Begum, who's this schoolgirl who ran off to go and become an ISIS bride, and Sajid Javid, because she had dual citizenship, when he was Home Secretary, he stripped her of British citizenship, and she is still now mouldering away in some refugee camp somewhere. And some people say, well, we should have her back. I actually used to believe that because I thought she was our problem. I think we now have so many people in this country who clearly hate us, hate everything about us, force their families to do awful, un-British things, all these other crimes. We can't afford to keep bringing in the world's problems, exactly as you say.
So many people so far, Benedict Spence, and possibly +1 with this decision, with the arrival of El-Fattah. Now, Robert Jenrick has said that he's demanded that Sir Keir Starmer should clarify whether he supported El-Fattah's views or was just ignorant. The government is now saying they weren't aware. The problem they're going to have now is that everyone is aware. What can they do now to find some sort of solution to this problem that will, not please just this panel, but the country?
I mean, I don't, genuinely, I'm not sure exactly what it is that they can do, because if they now decide, oh, actually, he's not a British citizen, or maybe something that he's done, is against the law, and maybe we need to lock him up ourselves, well, then they'll look like idiots, A, and B, it'll open the floodgates to what we're talking about here, which is actually, if you're not really that British, and maybe you have dual citizenship, why should you be our problem? The Shamima Begum case, actually, I agree with you. At the time, I thought when it was a one-off case, I thought, actually, this is our problem. And then when you see the scale, the number of people, you think, actually, is this our problem at all? Should we not be finding some broader solution to it? If they go down that route, they open up that floodgate. They don't want to do that because fundamentally they believe they have a responsibility to these people, even if the rest of the country sit there and go, we absolutely don't.
Not my problem, Jeff.
Absolutely.
Andy, very quickly, it's a very difficult one for a human rights lawyer to deal with as well, a man who believes in process and innate human rights. In this sort of situation, he's going to struggle massively to overturn that citizenship from 2022 and do what perhaps a lot of people want to happen now. Yeah,
I mean, instinctively, Keir Starmer, me, I'd want to really profoundly disagree with Benedict in this debate, but it's kind of defend the indefensible territory. Actually, if you look if you look at it logically, it doesn't make sense. You can't stand behind it, and I don't think Keir Starmer can either.
OK, Andy, Benedict, James, thank you very much. Well, a Foreign Office spokesperson has said Mr El-Fattah is a British citizen. It has been a long-standing priority under successive governments to work for his release from detention and to see him reunited with his family in the UK. The government condemns Mr El-Fattah's historic tweets and considers them to be abhorrent.